Patch notes for patch 1.0.2, also known as the infamous Update 2, are finally out, in a sense. Community manager Elizabeth and lead producer Andreas have just ran through their update presentation on the Payday channel, touching on the most major content beats landing when it finally goes live. That means we don't have any specifics on in-depth bug fixes yet, but we do know a lot more about the update as it stands. As I mentioned when I covered the first dev update video, it's looking like this patch is going to be broken up into 3 primary categories: quality of life, new content, and system changes, with the game's first post-launch heist finally releasing alongside the highly requested progression overhaul. I now know a few more details I can share with you guys as far as these additions are concerned, so let's dive right in and start by taking a look at the reimagined versions of Cook-Off and Murky Station joining Payday 3's roster of heists. First of all, a few corrections from my initial speculation when these were announced. They will in fact be taking place in New York and not their original locations, meaning canonically these are just deja vu heists as opposed to actual on-site revisits. Unfortunately, that also means that Locke is only returning as a contractor for these, with Shade retaining her role as the handler and primary instruction giver. I don't necessarily have an issue with this, it just seems like a wasted opportunity to not have Locke step in for an even greater nostalgia trip. Although, from what Andreas mentioned, this will still be a trip down memory lane as Shade is reading from Bane's own meth cooking instructions during Cook-Off, which sounds like it could be a nice touch. Speaking of the iconic cabin in the woods, it's also had a bit of a glow up both visually and in terms of objectives, although I think one change will be considered quite controversial. The heist looks brilliant and should have a little more combat depth, bearing in mind it has been expanded with the addition of scaffolding providing more entrances and a newly built garage area located just outside of the basement. The goal in the primary gameplay loop remains the same: cook meth by adding specific ingredients to enact a powerful chemical reaction that can go wrong if you make a mistake, although now it's possible for you to add further value to your loot by managing your cook time to not underdo or burn the product. No one likes dry meth after all. Where I think some will be disappointed is in how this heist is no longer an endless one, instead having a hard 19 bag cap, reportedly for game economy balance reasons. This feels like the wrong reason to limit our fun, although I'm still fairly certain that cooking 19 bags is going to take a lot longer than any other heist in the game. Also, from what we've been told, the final charge will begin after cooking 10 bags, meaning the final 9 will need to be secured whilst under the pressure of an endless assault, including frequent dozers, which actually sounds like a decent challenge that might finally threaten those meta armor builds on overkill. Of course, we'll have to see how this one plays, and if the cap does limit our fun with it, but for right now, Cook-Off looks very promising. The second legacy heist in this update is Murky Station, now known as Turbid Station, set in an almost identical riverside location, just in another state. Whilst Cook-Off will remain loud only, Turbid Station is confirmed to be releasing as Payday 3's first ever stealth only heist, which makes a lot of sense. We won't be stealing EMP parts on this one though, as instead the payload appears to be a pair of satellite prototypes, which is logical as I don't imagine there are any plans to drop EMPs on remote Siberian labs for the gang, at least at the moment. Looking at the map changes here, there has been a clear focus placed on climbing and verticality, as the train cart roofs are now accessible, as well as us being able to slide under the train carts, which wasn't always possible in Payday 2's version. Again, I'm happy to say this heist looks brilliant and atmospheric, although not for the first time, Payday 3 does seem to have defaulted to that green Capital Wasteland Fallout 3 filter, which is not something everyone will appreciate. Also in the new content category, we're receiving some budget C-Stack cosmetics in the form of the Lichen, a preset version of the Compact 7 which will only cost 25 C-Stacks to buy, as well as the Under Wraps mask which looks a little like a mummified grin from Payday 2 and will reportedly come with movement physics costing just 10 C-Stacks. Of course, we're also receiving the Transporter skill line, which I think will become an interesting addition, although, as I've said before, I'm predicting it'll either suck or become a meta skill line. There is no in-between. Being able to carry multiple bags could be a game changer for solo players though, and I'm also interested to see how carrying extra deployables works out from the Deep Pocket skill. Unfortunately, I'm expecting even more armor bag spam after the patch. That's it for new content, but only a fraction of the update, as the most major quality of life addition is coming in the form of brand new animations for virtually every action in the game, from opening doors to reviving teammates. These look phenomenal and add a ton of personality that I think was really missing. I know this is something they plan to actively work with and iterate on in the future, so my request now would be to see some unique character specific animations for certain actions, particularly when it comes to inspecting weapons or your own gloves. My only complaint here is that these haven't been in the game since launch. Honestly, how Payday 3 went live without them I simply will never know, as they just add such an easy air of polish to the game that has been sorely missing up until now. I'm hoping their addition is another sign that we're turning a corner though. Alongside these massive first-person additions, there are a number of name and quality of life changes coming in this update, including the addition of lobby chat for PC players. Excellent, but console is in even more dire need when it comes to communicating with teammates, so that desperately needs sorting too. Apparently, certain skills are being rebalanced somewhat. We don't know which or how yet, but if I were to guess, I'd say a skill like Armor Up, which belongs on basically every build in the game at the moment, will be taking a small hit. Alongside that, the crew AI are receiving a 300% health boost so they don't get melted on overkill. It sounds like this is going to be standard across all difficulties, so expect them to be almost immortal on very hard and below now, but that's probably worth it if it just makes overkill solo less of a campy snooze fest. On the main and pre-heist menus, the game will now also recommend challenges to complete on an upcoming heist to better convey what you can do to earn some more experience. In my opinion, this is too little too late for the system, although fear not, as progression is getting a much more detailed overhaul I'll touch on in a second. Finally, we're getting a mute heist brief over option, so no more back in the saddles or needing to earn some money. After all that though, probably the most impactful additions in the entire update are actually changes to the launch progression system. We all know that pure challenge leveling has its faults, and was never really given a chance to succeed due to how shoddily it was implemented, but rejoice, as it seems we'll be getting a fairly substantial new method of leveling up. Infamy points, Payday 3's account experience currency, will now be rewarded in 3 new ways. First, for completing a heist successfully, second, for completing said heist without breaking stealth, and third, for doing so after stealing all loot. Assumedly, the amount you'll earn will also scale based on the difficulty you played on. This caters to most players, and assuming it's well balanced, is an excellent and more comprehensive than expected improvement to progression. Personally, I would have preferred a scaling system for XP per bag, as opposed to this binary did or did not secure all bags approach, especially bearing in mind some heists like Under the Surface and Neon Cradle require stealth for some items of loot, but even so, this is going to shake up the leveling process tremendously and properly reward players no matter how they want to play the game. To go alongside this, outside of the base game's 150 infamy levels at launch, Starbreeze are already adding an endgame leveling system known as Renown. Now, for every 2,000 infamy points you earn once at max level, you will gain 1 renown, with a maximum of 1,188 renown levels coming with the patch. One random cosmetic item from the current renown pool is also given to you as an incentive to rise through these ranks. Whilst it will impact less than 1% of the community when the update goes live, this is still a solid move by the designers, future-proofing progression now that it looks like leveling won't be so tedious, and more heisters might be looking to hit the max rank. That's it for these patch note highlights. Obviously, the full release patch notes will give us more details, but these are reportedly not coming out until the update actually goes live, so this is the best we have to mull over for now. As for that release date, the guys have doubled down on their by the end of November statement, which quite nicely lines up with a potential certification timeline if we assume it was sent out to Microsoft and Sony around when the dev update went live, meaning I'd put my money on sometime mid next week. From my perspective, this update is indicative of Payday 3 taking massive steps in the right direction, and I'm hoping will open the floodgates for future content once the all-important second patch is out in the wild. I think the combination of new content, improvement of current systems, and sweeping QOL additions make for a perfectly balanced patch. I just wish we didn't need these massive changes to go alongside the exciting new content, but that is the hand we've been dealt by what does seem to have been a rushed timeline. So I'm here to make the most of it and cover the contents of the update once it finally goes live regardless. Thanks so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you all very soon. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.